Le Mans Ultimate is out of early access and version 1.0 is finally here. And I'm sure many people will be asking themselves the question, is it now time to get Le Mans Ultimate? Was 1.0 a game-changing update? Does Le Mans Ultimate make Gamer Muscle's 3 hair follicles vibrate with joy? What does it do well? And what does it totally fail miserably at? Well, that is what we're going to find out in this video. Remember to subscribe so you can unsubscribe when I tell you that your realistic simulator is perhaps not that realistic. Click the like button, still don't know what it does. And of course, a huge thank you to all our channel members and supporters that allow us to talk rubbish on the internet and get away with it. Without you guys, I'd be forced to have a real job, and just think of the damage that that would do. Welcome to the world of modern gaming, where early access doesn't mean anything, and 1.0 could mean anything at all. Ultimately, what matters though is what you can buy, what price it costs to buy what you buy, and whether or not it was worth saying bye-bye to your money. And in the case of Le Mans Ultimate, I would say for the vast majority of people, even quite a few sim racers, it probably is not worth getting. However, I would say, for a select group of sim racers and people, those of you specifically looking for online competitive racing, then it definitely is worth getting. And the reasons I say those things is because as a single player racing game or offline racing against AI, though it is there and it kind of works, it really doesn't work in a very interesting or exciting way. There's many other titles that do that a lot better. Also, I'd say from a raw car handling and driving excitement experience, again, it's generally a little bit dull to drive. Certainly nowhere near as interesting or as exciting to drive as Automobilista 1, Assetto Corsa, Richard Burns Rally, and even content found in R-Factor 2. The driving of these cars is a little bit dull, let's be honest. A large part of that isn't LMU's fault, it's the fault of GT3 cars, and GT3 cars in general driving like a P&O cross-channel ferry. Now the hypercars are a lot more exciting, a lot more nimble, a lot more fun to drive, but again they also suffer from this bizarre kind of muted dullness to them. It makes them easy to drive, and it does lend itself to some very big positives that I'll explain in a minute, but ultimately there is definitely a sort of underlying mutedness to this simulator. Maybe it's the physics, maybe it's the force feedback, but if you're an experienced sim racer that's played sims for over 20 years, you won't help but notice what I mean. Some of you might be thinking, that's too harsh, Gamer Muscle, and I'll be thinking, deal with it, it's the truth. Now where Le Mans Ultimate really stands out and shines and offers the most value is in its online racing and its online ranked system. Right after loading into the game, you can jump straight into online ranked races, with there being ranked organised races every half hour or so, and there being a multitude of online races, from pure GT3 car races to mixed World Endurance Championship races with GT3 and hypercars, or just hypercar races. There's also a good mixture of race lengths, from 20-minute races to 2-hour races, and in the future even longer proper endurance races. And with the game only really being GT3 and hypercars, it means that you're going to get huge amounts of players all funneled into the same things. Many of the races taking place will have 20 plus splits of 20 plus cars, making it as likely as possible that you're going to get some close racing with people of a similar skill level to yourself. And when you combine this with the netcode and the general nature of how things work online in terms of the race dynamics of the vehicles, there is no other game at this point in time that offers as compelling racecraft and racing action that you can just jump into. Some of you will cry iRacing, and I will cry one-way tyre model plus netcode equals not good racing. For sure, Le Mans Ultimate moves the needle slightly in the unrealistically forgiving direction compared to iRacing's unrealistically unforgiving direction. But guess which one leads to more compelling and in many ways more realistic online racing? It's not iRacing. So what exactly has this release version of Le Mans Ultimate brought to the table over the early access version? Well, not a huge amount, to be honest. There have been some tweaks and polishes, and you definitely notice some back-end tweaks and polishes, which have meant that you get less problems joining on online races, less UI issues, and less game crashes. For example, we did a 10-hour live stream yesterday, and we didn't have a single game crash, whereas at the beginning of early access, the game would crash more than an orangutan driving a golf cart during an earthquake. So really what you're experiencing is just a very polished version, or much more polished version, of what was available a few months ago. But for fans of the title and people that are doing a lot of online racing in LMU, some of the user interface changes, especially for the car setups, will actually have a really big usability impact. The tyre changes to the GT3 cars compared to the previous version as well will probably be quite welcoming to people that like a little bit more forgiving tyre slip behaviour. Though to be honest, even the controversial previous update that was less forgiving in its tyre slip behaviour, I think was still really easy to drive on the grand scheme of things when it comes to racing simulators. If you're careful on your braking, you're careful on your throttle and your lift-off oversteer coming off the throttle, and then know how to snap countersteer when the rear steps out, LMU is genuinely a very, very easy title to drive. Though, I think the thing that has really let it down, and what does make it hard for people, is the simulator's real lack of detailed force feedback. And this lack of detailed force feedback is going to be even more pronounced on lower end wheels. So I think a lot of the complaints and a lot of the difficulty in the past version, and probably that will still remain in this version, will be arising due to the lack of detail in the force feedback, describing where the tyres are at, where the limit is, and whether or not you're balancing at the limit. With those core most pertinent aspects said and mentioned, there's only one really obvious thing left to do, and that's to go to 90s Techno Review Mode. Graphics, 6 out of 10. Sound, 7 out of 10. Force feedback, 5 out of 10. Physics, 8 out of 10. Netcode, 9 out of 10. Multiplayer, 9 out of 10. Single player, 5 out of 10. Vichy Hoyer, 10 out of 10. Content, 6 out of 10. UI, 7 out of 10. Player count, 10 out of 10. Damage, 6 out of 10. Fanboys, 9 out of 10. Tire model, 7 out of 10. Wheel support, 8 out of 10. VR support, 6 out of 10. In conclusion, Le Mans Ultimate at its 1.0 release is a fantastically fun to play online racing simulator. And for the people that want good online racing, I'm pretty sure that they will get great value out of the £60+ asking price for this game. Additionally, if you're specifically a fan of the World Endurance Championship, GT3 cars, hypercars and many of the tracks that they race on, you'll probably have a great time with this title. However, if you look at this game from a wider perspective and from a polished video game perspective, you can't help but feel that it's a little bit underwhelming for a 1.0 release. The single player is not really there or fleshed out. The AI is a bit dull to drive against. The physics and handling in many ways is worse than titles that came out over 10 years ago. And it genuinely feels like it's one of those always a work in progress titles, or more of a game as a service, rather than something that you plonk your money down on and really get into in a traditional video game or traditional simulator sense. In fairness to Studio 397, they're pretty much doing stuff that's par for the course in the modern sim racing space. But sadly, I am old enough to remember a time when the world was black and white and things were simpler. And with that simplicity, and in many ways lack of complexity, came more coherent and slightly more polished products. A full 3-course meal, if you will, rather than random courses thrown at your face, some of them missing half the ingredients. Regardless of that, Studio 397 have demonstrated that they are committed to improving, building and developing Le Mans Ultimate into the future. And you have to give them credit for being very responsive to their user base's demands, implementing and tweaking things in accordance to what the users have asked for. So I think if you come into this thinking of it more as a game as a service, a multiplayer gaming service specifically for GT3 and hypercar racing, then you'll be happy. But if you come into it expecting a rounded video game or rounded racing simulator, you're probably left thinking, why on earth did this cost £60? On a personal level, I have really enjoyed playing Le Mans Ultimate, even going back into its early access phase. The online racing again is genuinely some of the best concrete slab racing that you can have in all of sim racing. There's only so much I can put in this video. I didn't want this review to go on for too long, and I really just wanted to attack the most pertinent points to help you decide if this is something that's worth buying for yourself, because that's the question I get asked over and over again in live streams. I highly recommend watching some of the other videos on this channel where we cover many other aspects of this simulator, and I highly recommend, as I say, subscribing and following us on Twitch so you can see us when we're live and we can answer your questions directly. Hopefully you enjoyed this and found it useful. If you wasted your life and got this far in the video, give us a teapot by your comment in the comment section. But until the next video, thank you very much for watching, happy tea drinking, take care, and goodbye.